longtime resident, and I live in almost every black neighborhood in Brooklyn. And I'm here because I'm concerned about issues that will affect us.
Hey everybody, I'm Esteban Harun. I live on Franklin and Carroll, in between all of the developments. It's right in the center of them. And I came to this through my work with the Conrad Tenant Union and just doing tenant advocacy, and ended up realizing that we needed to get involved in land use as well. So happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Teresa Westergaard. I'm a CB9 member. I live nearby in Southern Crown Heights. I've lived here for almost 20 years. I moved here when my daughter was a baby. So I've been a mom, bike rider, car driver, landowner now, here, and I joined the board, and I'm here because I'm invested and interested in what's happening in my community, because a lot of people are losing their housing and being forced out of their homes, and there's a lot of development that's very alarming that's happening in my neighborhood. So to be informed about that.
My name is Beverly Newsom. I am a tenant at Evans Fields, and I'm part of the community board, and that's it.
I'm Regina Clark, a resident member of the Economic Development Committee. Part of this now. I've been living in East Flatbush, been around Brooklyn for a while, but for 10 years. I live closer on Schenectady Avenue, so I'm on that side. And yeah, lots of stuff has been going on in the neighborhood, so that's when I really decided to join last year.
Okay, and everybody else wants to use this as well?
Sure. My name is Dan Seiderman. I live in East Flatbush. I'm not technically part of the community, but my friend Roland just joined the board and invited me to come. I have just an interest in politics and getting involved more in just the community in general, so I wanted to come and see what it's all about.
Okay, great.
Hey, my name's Max. Some people also call me Roland from Middle Name. I just got appointed to CB9, and I'm trying to go to the different committees to understand what each of them are about a little bit better.
Okay.
I've lived in Crown Heights, Flatbush area for the last, 8 or 9 years now.
Okay.
Yep. Hi, I'm Andrew Magnus. I'm a resident member of the Transportation Committee at CB9, and I live in West Gardens.
And a frequent visitor to Wheeler.
Yes, I am an architect and planner, and I care about land use and its impacts on my life specifically.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Spencer Williams. I'm here from the Brooklyn Borough President's Office.
Okay.
Just here to observe. And
Okay.
also a Brooklyn resident. I live in Bedside.
Thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Sophia Leibowitz. I'm a reporter with Streets Walk. I'm going to a bunch of different meetings to kind of see how community boards are reacting to the new City of Yes proposal.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. And I am not really going to read the full rules in order. Oh, Felice. Very
Hi.
important.
Yes, my name is Felice Robinson. I am on the community board. I live in a community right across the street from Botanical Gardens. I am in the union, work for the city. I sit on the 71st Precinct Community Council. I'm involved with a lot. Okay. Hello.
Okay, I didn't miss anybody, right? Okay, so I'll dispense with the usual reading of the rules of order, but everybody please raise your hand and wait to be called on if you want to be recognized. It's the only way we can make sure that everybody gets heard. Public participation is at the discretion of the chair. I hope not to have to invoke that. But we do have business to get through. We need to vote on some of these things. And so I may limit the amount of time for public comments. You know, there aren't that many of you here, but just keep your comments short. Don't give speeches, a couple of minutes is enough. Okay, so this is, I think, about, gosh, we've had at least 3 or 4 meetings so far discussing City of Yes in this subcommittee. more than that.
Especially for a while, you're talking about for the last, you're talking about
For the
housing
last
only?
Just
year,
environmental, yeah, for
yes.
us,
Right,
yeah.
okay, for the last year, I think we've voted at least, this is like at least our fourth meeting on the housing opportunity text amendment. But we've actually been discussing many aspects of it for almost a year now. For those who are kind of new to this, do we need sort of a brief overview of City of Yes?
I'm familiar.
Okay, so, we'll try to get through as much as we can tonight, but I wanna start with the high density proposals, the universal affordability, because that is really going to affect a huge swath of our district. Because these zoning text amendments were not done based on neighborhood or based on what was actually in your community, but based on zoning district. And we know that in our community district, the zoning does not match what has been built in most of the districts. So the majority of our district has high-density residential zoning, but buildings that are much smaller than that zoning would suggest. So we already have a problem with smaller buildings being demolished and people building up, twice as big. It's even happening with some small apartment buildings, right? They're threatening to demolish a rent-stabilized building on Eastern Parkway.
Like 12 buildings right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw the building on the corner of President as you walked in here. That building was 2 stories, they emptied it, they put another 3 stories on top. Okay, so this happens already in our community, and what City of Yes is going to do is allow increased zoning density, significantly increased zoning density in these higher density zoning districts. If that increased density is affordable, and in this case it's going to be at 60% of the area median income, which today is about $76,000 for a family of 3. By comparison, the actual median income in our district, as of the latest census figures, is about $77,000 for a family of 3. So this is not necessarily housing for low-income families in our district. This is just housing for the median family in our district who, they might already have affordable rent-stabilized housing. So the problem with City of Yes from our perspective is that although city planning has been saying these are density increases of 15-20%, in our district it's much greater than that. Because the R6 on a narrow street, which is all of your residential side blocks, including Sullivan, Franklin, and so on, that the current zoning density is a 2.2. But the increased density would go up to a 3.9. So that is a 60% increase in zoning density. For contextual zoning districts like R6B or R6A, which is what exists in Park Slope and Carroll Gardens, and most other districts across the city, these are 15 to 20% zoning density increases, and the zoning more closely matches what was already built. So they get an increase of exactly about 15 or 20%, and maybe it means that they can build an accessory dwelling unit or an additional floor on top. But for us, where many, many buildings already can build 2 or 3 times as much as is already built, and then on top of that, you're adding 60%, it's highly likely that at some point these buildings will be demolished. Even if the developer has to make all of the additional floor area affordable. And so a couple of updates that I want to give. City planning has said that we wouldn't likely see development of multifamily housing without a new tax abatement, like a replacement for 421A. That has now happened. It's called 485W. Does anybody want to update us on that, Esteban?
It's not that big of an update. It does give them an additional 5 years than what they have for 421A. It shifts the affordability requirements just a little bit, but it was a giveaway. big giveaway.
5 years.
So it'll be 40 years instead of 35 years.
Yeah, so the developers are really cheering this. I saw an article in The Real Deal, which is a real estate industry publication, saying that basically development sites which had become almost worthless are now in play again. They're looking at something like $200 a square per buildable square foot as a number that they can that they can work with to build affordable housing in addition to the market rate units. So that actually covers a lot of our community. Like, just to give you an example, if you have, let's say, a 2,500 square foot lot, you have a semi-detached house, and you can build up to 2.2 times the amount. So you have 5,500 buildable square feet. And the latest home sales, they're selling for, say, $1.2 million. That's, significantly less. That's just about the $200 a square foot level. So if that's what's going on your block, then your homes are already in play. Now, if you imagine that goes from a 2.2 to a 3.9, right? So the buildable square feet is now 8,000, 9,000 square feet. Now, if your homes are currently selling for anything less than, $2 million, your homes will be considered for development by a developer, even with the affordable housing requirements. That, I would say, you all know, what the market prices are like in your areas, but I would say that covers the vast majority of our district. If it's not landmarked, if it's landmarked, obviously it can't be demolished, but there's also, increased provisions for air rights transfers. So those air rights may simply go just outside of the landmark district, and those people will have towers all around them. Okay, so that's my update, and the other update, which is good to know, good cause eviction. Somebody want to tell us about that?
Sure. So the legislature passed a extremely weakened form of good cause eviction. It's got a ton of carve-outs. It's basically this is like a lease renewal, sort of like rent stabilization, but not nearly as robust or as protective. There's carve-outs for the number of units. There's carve-outs for different locations, like so anything outside New York City has to opt in. Your landlord can say that they're a small landlord, and you have to figure it out yourself if they are or not, and they can hide behind LLCs and all that stuff still. So it's about to be like the Wild West in terms of housing court, because it's going to get litigated like crazy. So,
And it exempts new construction.
New construction, anything built before 2009, and then rolling every year from there. There's also I think the thing that was most disappointing was the carve-outs for like owner use, things that we've already dealt with rentalization, that just makes it really easy for them to do that, and it leaves out probably about half of the market rate tenants that the original legislation was meant to cover. So, but it does bring some additional rights not rights. It's not a right. You can go to court and use that as a defense.
Right.
A judge can still say, yeah, no, they deserve that rent increase. And that's the big thing is the rent increase. So it's tied to CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. For right now, any rent increase over 8.82% is considered unreasonable unless they can prove that it's reasonable. So.
Just quickly.
I still have not heard if this is rent stabilized.
Yeah.
Is this differential rent?
It's
You know,
for
what
market rate.
category?
It's for market rate tenants.
So therefore, they can raise the rent any which way they choose.
Well, if they fall under the
Very narrow category.
the very narrow category, then they cannot raise it more than 8.82%. It doesn't affect red stabilized apartments at all. It doesn't affect anything that's like on a subsidy or on a program or anything like that. I think that in the district, really you have a lot of rent stabilized buildings. Like the people that really needed this particular protection are the ones that are like living in like a 2-family home or like in a basement somewhere, and like this doesn't cover them at all.
So basically, when we're talking about new construction market rate housing in the context of City of Yes, it's still market rate, and there's not going to be any type of like increases in limits to the amount that they can increase rents. And demolition remains an important exception to good cause eviction.
And I was reading through it again today, and it all says good faith. So like a good faith that you're going to demolish it, or good faith, stable. It's like we're in this situation because landlords were not operating in good faith. But there's also the other thing that's notable, I think, for stabilized tenants is the change in individual apartment improvements, which is it's ridiculous that they backtracked on that. But basically, for people who have lived in their apartment for 25 years or more, they've got a target on their back now because the landlord can get them out and get a much bigger increase than they would have gotten otherwise.
So this is really important to keep in mind, because I think we're going to see a lot of these owners of smaller market rate buildings, the 3, 4, 5, 6 unit buildings, who might have, so if the 10 unit limit is by, landlord, right? So you can have a landlord who owns several of these smaller buildings that are 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 units, something like that, and they might otherwise be subject to good cause eviction, but they're going to be looking at demolition as one way that they can get out of this. And so that's really important to keep in mind when we look at our existing zoning and when we look at what City of Yes can do. This is really a major threat to tenants, and I
it's also
just
substantial rehab, which is sort of like the twin of demolition.
Demolition.
Yeah.
And we are seeing that with these additions where somebody adds like 2 stories on top, but they're really rehabbing the entire building, that gut renovating it from top to bottom. So I just sent the committee members an email with a spreadsheet that showed all of the lots in the district where the amount that could be built as of right is greater than 2 times the amount that is already built on that lot. And that's a classic measure that developers use to decide whether or not they could profitably demolish and redevelop that building. And that was something that was told to us by one of the former borough president's land use director. But it's something, it was also in the EIS for Franklin Avenue, if you noticed that. That's what he was saying about whether or not buildings would be redeveloped. And so, if you look at that spreadsheet and you add up
It
all
wasn't
the...
attached.
Yeah.
So, whoops,
Yeah.
okay, so...
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to send it to you guys
It's all
afterwards.
right, yeah.
But, my apologies, I was rushing. But the total of the number of units that could be built, and I assumed that each unit would be about 800 square feet, and that's, again, typical number that city planning uses for the average size of apartments. We're looking at possibly an additional 38,000 units as of right under the current zoning. And to put that in context, we currently have 43,000 units in the district. So we're talking about potentially doubling the number of units if we do nothing about our current zoning. Now, under City of Yes, that number would rise substantially because you're talking about increasing the R6 zoning density by 60%. And not to mention R7 also goes up by, 30 to 45% in some cases. R8 goes up.
I thought they was touching R8.
R8A might not go up a lot, but R8 definitely goes up. And then, the R1 through R5, they're saying accessory dwelling units. The expectation is that there wouldn't be huge uptake of that, but nevertheless, we will still see some. The last time we met, we looked at missing middle, the transit-oriented development, where large lots in low-density districts near transit, on corners, on wide streets, etc., could increase their zoning density somewhat. And we didn't really find that many. What we basically found was that a bunch of lots on President Street, which are currently single-family houses, would get a density bump. And we knew they wanted that anyway. They came to our board several years ago to ask for a zoning increase. They didn't get it for various reasons. Maybe they weren't all agreed to that. But some people had wanted it because they have larger families. And then like a handful of lots on Wider Street. But it really was just a handful. This isn't going to be significant at all for our district. What is going to really be significant is the universal affordability.
Okay, so are we saying that we are against the universal affordability?
If you're cutting to the chase,
Yes, because we got a lot to get through.
It's 7:41.
We have a lot to get through.
okay, so,
Well, I would just want to say something about that, because when when you're talking about $77,000, you're not talking about the black people in the black community.
Right.
You're not talking about Crown Heights, right? Crown Heights, median income is 50,000. And if we're talking about looking at the statistical data that was given, that the city brought out, they said specifically that the target population that has 0.39% availability is people who make under $25,000, which means that low income. That means everybody in Crown Heights, or half of the people in Crown Heights, if they get displaced, will have a 6% chance of finding an apartment in New York City. 6% chance.
That's generous.
6%, right? 6%.
and let's be clear
So,
about something.
but let me finish. So, if you are targeting people who are making $80,000, which is what this program is doing, that in no way is going to first address the housing crisis that we are in, nor will it be beneficial to the black people in this community, because they won't be able to afford it. It's already out of their range. So, of course, 60% is not. It should be 20%, which would be in their range, to 30%, which would be in their range, because then it would be, because that's the most needy population. 6%. I don't know how many people like to feel, I don't know how many people think that it's okay to live in an apartment and then be moved out of your apartment and then know that you have a 94% chance of being homeless. 94% chance. That's what's happening in Crown Heights right now. 94% chance of being homeless. And that target, that 60%, in no way is going to address that population. And until we start getting true housing that addresses the majority of residents in our community, then we should not be giving up all the towers and for what? It's still not going to service the people who need the service the most.
And if I could just add to that also, for anybody who doesn't know, the community preference was largely eliminated. So whatever is built in CV9 is not at all guaranteed to go to people from CV9. And even when there was a community preference, very few people really managed to get these lottery units because there are requirements. You have to have decent credit. You have to fill out the application. I had one neighbor who tried to fill out the application. She was a freelancer. She didn't make a lot of money, but it took her like 70 hours to get through all the documentation. It was very difficult because she was a freelancer, and she didn't get it. And
We're not talking about public housing. We're talking about a private developer that owns. Like, so they're just a regular landlord.
Right.
So there's nothing like they can deny you for whatever reason, and it's not up to the city or the state to.
right, so
deny
it it's not like and let me just say also, when I was talking about the 38,000 new units, these are all based on buildings that are likely to be demolished. And when I added up the total number of units in those buildings, that's also 38,000. So that means that, even if many of them are owner-occupied single-family housing, we're still talking about a lot of 2-3 family units and up. So we're still talking about several thousand tenants who are being directly displaced by this type of demolition. And this is under the as-of-right scenario. With the scenario where we add even more zoning density, it becomes even more likely that this happens, and it's going to happen even faster. So yeah, just based on that alone, I would say absolutely not. This is total destruction for our community. This is saying you don't have the right to exist as a community.
My quick point for some people who haven't been here is we went line by line in City of Yes just for folks, and we were against it for this committee, and we talked through it. So I just really want to lay the groundwork of just we're against it. But obviously there's the City of Yes proposal, but obviously we're going through the details for anyone who hasn't been to these meetings.
Did anyone watch the city planning commission?
No, I
it was
didn't
on
see that.
Monday, I guess, last week.
It was like 10 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. One of the commissioners was texting me to find out if there were any questions that we had. So I got to ask some questions and. Did you hear that?
Yeah, you name dropped.
Yeah. Yeah, Leah name dropped. Yeah. No, I mean we asked basically asking if why would we as community members give up literally the only the advisory our advisory vote that we get to and the opportunity to review, and then just give it away for as a right. Like you're not going to get any community board to agree to that. Like there's no good reason to do it.
Right.
Like, and they're basically telling community boards, we want to do this because you're holding up the process. Like you're making it harder for developers to do. And so, I mean, yeah, that's the point. Like if developers can do this is like an age-old thing, like regulation versus, doing whatever the hell you want. And
But if they were doing something that would really improve the city and address the problem, we might be open to it, but they're not. They're blinding their pocket.
And let's be clear, in this community, they can already do whatever the heck they want. So now you want to be able to
Do it without permission.
now you want to be able to
permission,
do,
without
now you want to be able to do whatever the heck you want.
without actually
And
getting
beat us into the ground,
yeah, we don't even get to have the tiniest say, and it just doesn't make sense. Like why would they come to you and say, we want to take away some of your power? We know you don't have very much at all, but let me take what you have and yeah.
Well, even when we had power on Franklin Avenue, they overrode.
Exactly, we have one tiny
one
section
little
of our
area we
community that is
Height protected.
contextually zoned and appropriately zoned, and they want to take that away from us.
They
So
have.
if you think about the whole rest of the community that has absolutely no power, and they want to just rub your faces in the dirt, I mean.
That's exactly what's happening in my little part of the community, to the community board district.
Andrew, yeah.
A few things. Number one, thank you for doing the analysis. I also know that when you, and you've done this very, very forcefully, put us in a room and say, every other building you see is going to be demolished. You said very clearly that the ADU proposal, they think that they're only going to have 2 to 5% uptake on that. How much do you actually think is going to happen if this not only affects where we live, but all other parts of Brooklyn, most of Upper Manhattan, everything that else would also potentially be desirable for other people?
So
That's number one.
Okay.
If you have a percentage of you can't just be hey, everything that you know is going to be demolished without giving us some sort of realistic parameters.
Right. So that's why I used the metric that it's got to be at least 2 times underbuilt, right? Because that's the typical metric that's used by developers. It's not every lot, right? We're not going to see so there's lots of lots that might have a 2-story building that could add 1 more story, and for the most part they're actually not even redeveloped, although we have seen some of them adding their extra story and it looks terrible, but we're looking at 2 times or more, right? And if it's possible today that it might not be demolished with just 2 times. It might go to it might require, let's say, 3 times or more for a demolition because, you know, you can cantilever over a building. We saw that with One Sullivan where they put 6 stories over a 6-story building, right? But that doesn't change the number of additional units. It's just gonna be going in as an addition rather than a demolition. And so like the way my spreadsheet is set up, and you know, I'm trying to send it to you guys, but I don't have Wi-Fi, you can filter it and you can change that 2.0 factor to a 2.5 or a 3.0 and see how many buildings that turns out to be, and I guarantee you, you know, like if at a 2.0 factor it's 38,000, I guarantee you that at a 3.0 factor it'll be at least 10 or 12,000.
And just a quick little like poke. If a building, if it gets substantially rehabbed or demolished, mostly just substantial rehab, or they had to add those stories or whatever, they get a new certificate of occupancy. So they don't fall under good cause either. Like even if they did before, they won't now. It's like the most perverse incentive for people to think of.
So what you're basically saying is that there is a destroy and rebuild scenario in this zoning.
As of right, it's going.
As of right, it's
As of
destroy
right,
and rebuild as of right.
and even more under UAP. All of those that as of right are at a 2.0 factor, which might be like, you know, let's say it's like 2.0 to 2.5, there might be a certain number of those, maybe it's like a fifth or third or something like that, right? All of those are now going to go into the 3.0 zone where almost certainly you will see demolition. Many of them will go way beyond that. You know, many lots in CB9, it's like, you know, there's almost nothing there. There's 1 story there, and you can build up to like, you know, 4.0 or 6.0 in some cases. You know, and you could subtract things like the whole Kings County Hospital campus, right? It is very underbuilt. You could subtract that, maybe that accounts for like 1,500 units as of right. You could subtract, you know, the already permitted units that I set out that number, that's about 2,500 units that are in the pipeline, not built yet, but fully permitted, so they're likely to go forward, right? You could subtract all of that, and we're still looking at, as of right, adding an additional 30,000 units, and with City of Yes, that's probably at least half again as much, right? So if not double that number.
Sorry, just a quick, because I guess, I feel like we're already seeing the demolition of, I'm going to put it in quotes, affordable houses, home ownership. So on my block, all of our houses are pretty much have air rights, right? I'm already seeing developers come in and demolish and build apartment buildings so that you take it, the few cheap, in quotes, New York standards, homes off the market. With these changes, there will absolutely be, I get letters in the mail all day long trying to acquire my house. So, you know, there are concerns. I feel like it will happen in certain parts. Obviously, I don't think you could really throw a number on it. You know, with taxes going up, obviously my new tax bills come in.
Unless you're a new developer, then
you know, and then we all, you know, obviously all the new development that's going on, because there's those 11 buildings, right, coming up over there in East Flatbush. What is going to continue to happen? Homeowners, especially long term, I've been there 10 years, but there are generational homeowners with generational families that will be at risk of, you know, stuff happening. Or, you know, even if it goes available on the market for a person who actually wants to buy a home in New York City, what options will you have? Because those will be scooped up, maybe sat on for a while until they can buy the house that's next door, and then do the mega situation there.
Or it accidentally burns down like it did in my block.
And that's just what's happening on my little block
Oh yeah, it's happened a lot.
already.
So I'm looking at the housing pipeline from 2022 to 2023, and it shows
No, we're
6
looking at-
apartments demolished in that time. So this does, like, I think that your premise is correct, but I'm just saying, like,
Apartments
under what
or
time?
apartment buildings?
Buildings,
Yeah.
sorry.
So what I looked at was the total pipeline.
What year did you say
Right.
that was?
2022
It
and
doesn't,
2023.
so you don't have,
DCP
so
scored.
in order to be accurate, you wouldn't look at just the last year, because there are a lot of buildings out there that were permitted 3-4 years ago. Franklin Avenue is a very good example. There are a whole bunch of buildings that got their permits years ago and have sat on those sites for years, and there are reasons for that, which we won't go into now. I think it has to do with the qualifications for 421A, but also just some of them, they just don't get the construction financing right away, or, you know, there was the pandemic,
They
yada,
did
yada,
extend,
yada.
so once
They're
like,
flipping.
there's a new program, but some of the developers that had already started their programs are still now falling into 421A, so it's essentially getting extended,
Right.
but it's.
So and we see that all the time, that there's somebody who gets a permit and sits on it for years, but I mean, you tell me like how long it takes to expire. They actually have quite a long time before it expires, and they have
Well,
to
they have
reapply.
very frequent, you can renew every 18 months.
Right.
But, so maybe this is something that we actually want to write in when we say no, but.
So,
Well,
anyway, to not
no, because.
get distracted from the main point.
Right.
So yeah, there's potential for a lot of direct displacement, you know, of people who are renting in smaller houses, of people who own smaller homes. This is just, you know, the whole community is going to go and be replaced by another set of people.
And one thing I'm not into is that demolition is more about the quote-unquote intent. So, like, a lot of these like situations where the tenants are getting kicked out of like the whole building, they're not actually following
They're not
through.
following a demolition permit. I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. So like that wouldn't get counted. So like that's you
Yeah,
know.
so this doesn't count for major alterations or IAPs.
Right.
Understood.
Yeah, I think what we keep missing here is, as far as I'm concerned, half of the people who are displaced are children. And I don't know why I would support anything that would allow one child to be displaced. We need to start thinking about the people who are the most vulnerable in our community, the people who live in those small little buildings, 2 and 3 stories, that don't have the rent protections, who, if a developer buys that building, this goes into effect, now we gotta destroy and rebuild. And those people in the street. There's nothing in this plan that's taking care of them.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this plan. And so we shouldn't be talking about but, because we're not even talking about the people who really need it. And so I don't think we should ever agree to one child being displaced, let alone thousands.
It goes back to the overarching premise for this housing amendment, or city of Yes in general, which we talked about before, and that this is supposed to be addressing our housing crisis, right? And it was like, build a little everywhere, everyone's gonna share in the building. But when we went through the last meeting, we looked at who's really gonna take the bulk of it. When we look at the additional dwelling units, building a basement, add a little hut in the backyard, convert the garage. It's not gonna be affordable housing. The mom, the grandma unit. It's not gonna be affordable housing. Converting, conversion of the commercial spaces, probably not really gonna be affordable housing either. I look at Goldman Sachs was one of the converted commercial spaces in Manhattan, and you know that's not.
Well, they also lifted the FAR cap, by the way.
Right.
Yes, they lifted the far right.
So we are building, maybe getting a little housing, all of the low density areas that have not contributed much to the affordable housing still won't be contributing to affordable housing as part of this. So the areas that are gonna have the brunt of development for affordable housing are the same culprits. Bed-Stuy, Brownsville, Crown Heights,
Bushwick.
Flatbush,
That was-
Bushwick.
That was the other point
Same
that
people.
we had to make at the city planning thing, which is like you're acting as though like we're all gonna start from scratch and go like, but we're not starting from scratch. Like there's already neighborhoods that have taken the brunt of development,
Right.
and you're not accounting for that at all. Like
If
you're,
anything, you are penalizing us for
Yeah.
not being a
And
part
it's
of the
gonna be on
Bloomberg.
steroids
Well,
then,
and
so
that's
exactly.
what it is.
That's what it
Right.
It's a
is.
land grab
And,
for
and
all
my,
the land
my
we didn't
point
get.
has always been, as a city employee that's affiliated with the union,
My people, my union people, they do not get the salary as they're predicting that they should get. Okay, they start out by making 30,000. 30,000, come on, who can afford the apartments? Okay, this is not right. And you have my city employees are in shelters today because they cannot afford it.
Because there's no apartments where you make $30,000, they're not building apartments. No matter what they say about affordable, they are not building. We've allowed the real estate industry to control our building for 2 decades, and where are we?
Right.
Where are we? Where have we've gotten worse, okay?
And this will be the death nail to.
It will make
Yes.
it worse.
Yes.
It will amplify the problem.
I wanna say it was a couple years ago that Jamani Williams wanted to put something out there that if it was proven that development would place an undue effect on people of color.
Rachel went back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The racial
Thank
Yeah,
impact.
it passed. So, I mean, that's.
So,
Are they using it? It doesn't seem like
okay,
it's
that's
being
where I am.
used.
Well, no, it's,
That's why I-
again, it's
it's not.
advisory. They don't have to, you have to do now the racial impact study, but it's just a study, like.
So then then my thing is, and I know people are gonna go, with the city of Yes, aren't people of color able to sue?
No. Once it's the law, you can't sue. Well,
Because you could sue on the grounds of, like right now, we're having this conversation. We've already seen how development play out in communities of color. We've seen it, so it's not like we don't have facts on it.
Always. Like,
Now we're looking at, right, it's always displacement, it's always encouraged displacement in entities that aren't new builds. So now we're looking at the city of Yes and the implementation of the city of Yes. So we know that's how that's gonna play out as well, because we're all discussing it here. That's grounds to sue, let's just say it was another entity doing it, that would be grounds to sue for bias for racial inequality. In any other entity, that would be grounds. It just so happens that it's the city government. But isn't there still grounds?
Yeah, so let's talk about the environmental impact statement. So normally in an EIS, if we're looking at like boards and like a certain number of people who are directly displaced, that does trigger the EIS, that does trigger mitigation and, possibly, I mean, EISs aren't really very strong, to be honest, but it should trigger a really hard look by the elected officials to say no. And, the numbers I was talking about, for our district alone, right, we would definitely see tens of thousands of units being demolished and therefore people directly displaced by City of Yes. And with absolutely no guarantee that they get back into affordable housing, right? Because, we know that a lot of times, the building has to be emptied first. Construction takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years, right? You have to apply for the lottery. It's an arduous process. A lot of times people just leave,
Exactly.
right? And there's no requirement that the landlord compensate them at all, especially with these smaller buildings, right? So you have in our district alone, there's enough people who are going to be directly displaced, and that's skipping the secondary displacement
Yeah.
analysis, which is much more
It's a big
complicated.
So when we
Right.
say that, instead of us just saying enough people are gonna be displaced, we need to begin to say enough people of color in this particular community are gonna be displaced. This amount of people of color are gonna be displaced in this area. This amount of people if we do this. When you attach a group onto those numbers that you opened up with this morning and look at the disparity between one group and the next, there is a racial bias.
Yeah.
And it's preyed upon individuals without power in America is individuals who are people of color. And when we look at Crown Heights, that's easy to do.
Okay, so does somebody want to help me with this analysis? Because we probably have to go census tract by census tract to look at the racial demographic breakdown. On a community district basis, I mean, I can just eyeball this list. I'm looking at a list of total number of housing units produced, and I sorted it from top to bottom. And I can eyeball this list and I can tell you which districts I know have significant numbers of minority residents and which ones don't. So, like, the top 10 on this list are Brooklyn districts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which are Williamsburg and Greenpoint, downtown Brooklyn, Fort Greene and Clinton Hill, Bushwick, 5 I believe is that 5 I think is Bronzeville, right?
Brownsville?
Woodland?
5, District 5 is Bronzeville.
District 5 is East New York
Yeah.
and Brownsville.
And Broadville, right. So, you know, Williamsburg at this point is not majority, minority. So 1, 2, and.
It never has been.
Yeah.
Hispanic.
But-
Once upon a, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I first
South
came,
You know,
we
we're-
were like, I don't wanna live
It
here.
was a large
That's what it is,
Hispanic
yeah.
population.
We're talking about, you know, like Bushwick, we have Bushwick and East New York on this list. Fort Greene, 3, which is Bed-Stuy and parts of Fort Greene. That's also significant numbers of minority residents, although they've lost a lot over the last 15 years.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
Solar put out a report that basically we went from majority minority to majority white, and that is in part due to all of the new
Yes.
development. Okay, so the bottom 10 on we are right in the middle. We clock in at number 33 out of 63 community, 59 community districts. So we're right in the middle, and the bottom 9 are Brooklyn 11, which is Bensonhurst.
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the list of built units, over the
Oh,
last,
right,
since
there you go.
2010. We have Brooklyn 11, we have, Brooklyn 10, that's Bay Ridge, that's second to last. Brooklyn 18, that's Canarsie. You know, there may be reasons for that because a lot of it is in a flood zone. We have, 4 is in Queens. We have several community districts in Queens. These are like the far eastern end of Queens primarily that really doesn't have transit. That's one of the reasons why they're so low density. We have Bronx 10. I'm not sure who they are. And Bronx 10 and 11. We have Manhattan 12, which is Washington Heights and Inwood. But you remember they have the Inwood rezoning, so they're probably getting several thousand more units coming, even though they haven't built a lot in recent years. Yeah, that's what it is. So, and, you know, many of these districts are gonna continue to not build housing under City of Yes, like you all said, because, for example, we know that the R4 and the R5 districts, they aren't really getting increases that are big enough to add substantial amounts of units. They might be able to add an ADU in the back, or maybe an additional unit on top or something like that, but primarily it's not gonna happen, particularly if it's a district that is where the zoning envelope is already very tight, you know, where they're already at or above the amount that they're allowed to build. And so, like, some of these zoning districts probably have substantial minority populations, you know, substantial immigrant populations, some of them don't. But I think the point is that, you know, and the mayor made this point, that, you know, we have districts that have built all the housing, but what he did say is there are districts that didn't build any housing, and, you know, are they gonna start doing something? At the same time, I don't think it would be right for us to tell them, well, this is how you should do it, and let's knock down all your houses, which is what they're saying in our district. You know, let them figure it out, what's the right way for them to do it. But
And I remember one commissioner mentioned the fact that they may not, his area may not have items designated as affordable housing because their community overall has still been affordable. So what would be considered affordable housing, their market rate is probably at that level, which is what we used to be.
Right, until we had, 10 years ago, most of the market rate housing was affordable because it tracked the rent stabilized units. Because the rent stabilized units were the market.
I'm just gonna add this caveat, because you just shared some numbers, Williamsburg, Bed-Stuy, right, where there was a lot of development, but there's displacement to go with it, because those numbers have changed. So like, what do they think is gonna happen, continue?
When they do that also.
And people are moving around, you know, to find the best, you know, the cheapest, and this is kind of the beginning of my years of New York and my $30,000 that I was making, of just transitioning, and people are moving to find affordable housing, but at this point, it's like everything's crazy, then you add more development, it's gonna be, you know, worse. So I think just highlighting that, the racial disparities of the points that you were bringing up earlier is quite important and relevant. Because it's not the real, it's more housing, but it's not the housing we need.
Right.
Right.
And they're continuing to build the housing that we don't need.
Right.
And they know that.
Yeah.
I was looking at a show, they know that, and Hochul knows that, but she has a different agenda. And as I was sitting here thinking, this would not be a city-on-city suit. This would be the federal government suing the city of New York, city of yes.
That
It wouldn't
Yeah,
be city on city, it would be federal government, because it's a racially biased.
It's a fair housing.
Exactly, it would be the federal government suing the city of New York, city of
It
yes.
doesn't even have to be intentional.
Right,
If
exactly.
the outcome is that, then.
That's it, that's
If you see that the outcome is gonna do that,
That is a
and you
very,
continue to move forward, it goes from unintentional to intentional.
that is a very good point, Alicia.
I just wanted to say that one of the statistics that we found out about Staten Island is they had a 3% turnover rate, and we have a 45.
Wow.
They have one of the most stable communities in New York City.
And that sounds right, under the zoning resolution, I don't know, like, you know, going back to when I was showing that framework to you guys, one of the things in the zoning resolution that it says that we're aiming for is the stability of residential communities. So that is a right, that is not something that we should have to fight for or give up this to get that or whatever. That's the goal, that's supposed to be the goal of good planning.
Well, but Staten Island hasn't had any major rezonings because they all got downsized underneath the Bloomberg administration.
And they get exempt.
And they're gonna get exempt. But I just use them as a model to say that they have created stable, they have low, moderate, and high income residents. They have the whole gamut. And their community is so stable that they're not worrying about displacement. They are worrying about it now with the civilians. They're worrying about their existing properties being destroyed and rebuilt. They're worrying about the quality of their neighborhoods changing, the reasons why you stay in a community. With 45% of the people transient in Black communities, that means people are not investing in our community. They're coming, they're staying for a little while, and then they're moving. And people have seen that in the rent stabilization buildings. You used to know your neighbor.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's not the
20
people
years.
of color transitioning out,
Right,
it's the newbies transitioning
that's
out.
right, that's right.
No, it
Because
is.
they don't know that they have rights a lot of times.
Yeah, no,
It's,
see,
but
Suki
it's,
don't say that.
no, that's not
No.
it. They're just, because they have more opportunity to find other housing.
I think I feel like there's that, but then there's, if you're new and you're renting, you're likely in a market rate. You get every year the rents.
Yeah.
There's that too, because I'm still trying to put myself in almost 20 years ago when I was here young, and those numbers kept changing, but not my salary. So I think there's probably multiple reasons for it, but yeah, being new.
Yeah, it's
We'll
very,
have to-
now rent stabilization apartments are very transient. The people are coming and going, people have come to me and told me all the time, oh, I used to know my neighbor, now
That's right.
people just come and they go and they come and they go, no stability, and that also means disempowerment in the community. Because when you stay, you invest, you get involved politically, you help your neighbor, you have more of a sense of community, and Staten Island, unfortunately, is a very powerful borough.
So I'm gonna touch on what you're saying, because, my husband is president of Washington Avenue for WABA. So what we do is we help tenants stay in their apartment. We need fixtures or harassment of the landlord, or if you may need an attorney to go to court, we help with this. Now, in my building, I'm just gonna say my building because it's happening along Washington Avenue, the highest rent there is $6,000.
Holy freaking money.
$6,000,
How did they
yes.
get
4,500 on Union.
there? I believe it.
So they're taking like a 2-bedroom,
There's new apartments in
right,
Washington.
made it 4. 3 bedrooms, they made it 5. So you have, it looks like students are moving in,
Yes.
okay? And for families that did move in, they stayed maybe a year. I tried to reach out to these new tenants because I tell them you have to go to DHCR and you can see the rent, what was the last rent payment, because they can't just jump it like that. They said, well, we're under this new thing called differential rent. Differential rent. Where they can charge after a year, whatever they want
They
to
can
charge.
charge what they claim is.
That's right. Okay, so there's a lot of, what did you call it, transients? It was correct, there's a lot of transients going through, I don't know who's who anymore.
So differential rent was supposed to have been eliminated under the 2019.
Was it eliminated?
Preferential reasons were eliminated. Preferential, I never heard of differential before.
That's probably
It's probably different,
Yeah.
Preferential, yeah,
yes.
preferential is when
You get a lower rent.
you get a lower rent until the market gets to where the landlord can actually charge more. There's a moratorium on
And the
preferential
landlord
rent,
decides what
but
market to charge.
interestingly, this is the other, like, the built on target on older tenants back. A lot of those tenants now, so like, if your rent was $1,000 before, and the legal rent's $2,000, and you're 80 years old and you've lived in your apartment more than 25 years, now, if the landlord gets you out, they're gonna get that $1,000 bump, they're gonna get a $325 bump, from the individual apartment improvements, and, yeah, I mean, that you're looking at like between $1,300 and $1,500, like, landlords took out a ton of loans on really bad mortgage, like, they did really risky, borrowing, and now they are desperate, and so this is what happens when they get desperate, like, they're gonna harass those people out of their homes.
And could I just add that with these new tenants, there are 2 and 3 cars that they bring? Okay, is they students or, I even have some doctors and nurses, police officers, okay, but they're not staying. 2 to 3 cars, and
But let's not put those vehicles out there as if they are for recreation. A lot of the people where I am, their cars are for work.
Correct, they have to drive distances.
Yes.
Yes.
Their cars are for work. It's not, oh, I wanna be available to go to Walmart over the weekend, that's not, no. Their cars are for work.
And if there's
Absolutely.
Yes.
Teachers,
And
Yes.
there's students are young. I mean, because how I got by in New York, my first years as a permanent resident, it was, you get a room share, good old Craigslist, So you are going to be transient. You're not permanent. If all the roommates don't sign up for that $6,000 rent, you've got to move, and you got to move somewhere else. And a lot of times it's not even the students, it's like just young people who graduated and here for work. I made my little dollars based on, the numbers we shared earlier. And, you do what you have to do to make it affordable and to be here to, progress or whatever have you. So, yeah, I think it's a mix of a lot of things. And, people can't stay because it's just simply not affordable and you have to do all these things. Sometimes people share rooms, did that too. So, like, everything's unaffordable at this point.
Some of this actually incentivizes that because it creates like dorms essentially.
Yes.
Well, that's what they're doing,
That's
right?
what
it
They're
is.
Yeah.
doing these SROs and,
There's actually like a red stabilized building on Kingsman, I think, that suddenly just burned to the ground. It's owned by one of these companies that does like essentially dorm living for like they call it communal living. Like they try to dress it up, but it's just really that dorm. Really. It's not the same as SROs, which was a whole other category of like SROs were like in the 40s and 50s were actually like a really like they were red stabilized, but they had protections and all that stuff. It's not what they're doing here. This is like windowless little like cubbies that they want to put. That's visible.
So the
Is there,
small and shared housing.
Yeah.
isn't, I didn't read the text amendments, are they actually talking about windowless apartments
Yeah.
in the text amendments?
I from what I understand, yeah.
It must meet light and air requirements for New York City, no matter the size of the unit. That means having a window.
So,
What's outside the window, we can debate, but good list
I think we're gonna discuss some of these finer points at the next meeting. We have one more meeting to discuss this. I wanna kind of get through, just the basic, points that you guys have already made and start writing this resolution.
It sounds like you were teeing up earlier to ask for a rezoning to an R6A or R6B. Do you want to speak about
That's
that?
not what we said, and that's not what we're talking about.
No, that's when you were talking about the FAR would increase, not commensurate to these other FARs, R6A, R6B, these other zoning districts that you think are, and you said this before, are contextually more suited to the neighborhood character that's established here.
Well, that's an entirely different discussion, because like I said, our contextual aside, the zoning density, that number, is way too high on the majority of properties in our district. It doesn't matter if it's height limited. If it's a 3.0 and the built density of the building is 1.0, it's getting demolished even if you're limited to 7 stories. And people can live there. I mean, I was just looking at one property on, I think like Brooklyn Avenue or Rochester Avenue or something. It's built to a 1.0. It's actually public housing. We have a NYCHA development all the way over east. I think it's called the Fenware houses. They're 2 stories. They're in an R6 district, right? There's another one, I think, over on Rochester that's similar. 2 stories. There's another one on Leffer. It's a NYCHA development. 2 stories. And they're in R6, districts. If it's on a wide street, that's already a 3.0. Those developments, and those NYCHA developments already have targets on their backs.
They were offered up though.
Like this whole thing of contextual versus non-contextual, like, yes, but I agree with people who are saying, let's just first say no, and then let's start making our demands, because there are really serious issues here with the zoning. And by the way, we're not the only district that has NYCHA developments where the zoning already far exceeds what they have, and that would be targeted for huge. There's a lot of them in East New York and in Fort Greene even, where there's actually a lot of open space, which is a good thing. That's why they were built. They were built as an antidote to these very high density tenements from the early 1900s, to give people open space, to give children the chance to play and have sunlight and what have you. And
Now the thing is, we don't want that anymore. You
and they don't
need
have
that
targets on their backs.
Exactly. But they were offered up. They weren't sought out. NYCHA was offered up
Yeah.
to developers.
And so we
and they're gonna build in
have,
these spaces, right?
we don't usually talk about NYCHA because there's not a lot of it and they're not that big, but we have them.
Yeah,
And they're very low density.
That
Yes, yeah, it's a
spot,
road.
yeah, with the whole. You wouldn't even know with NYCHA.
Well, there's campus proposals which could affect NYCHA and also the hospitals and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
That'll be for infill, right?
let's.
We haven't talked about that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get there.
Given how dire the situation is in our district, I'm not for saying well, if we could just limit the heights, it'll all be okay. It's not, you know, we're talking about most of our district ultimately being displaced.
They can take alleys, they can go deeper, they can, I mean, that's the concern,
Just pick a street.
Rod had picked up. I mean, I even
What
see them,
density were you talking about?
they do go deeper.
And you know,
On our
people
block,
will
they
say,
definitely
okay,
go
if it's a
deeper.
homeowner and they're selling and they're happy to sell, so what? But you know what happens? Like a lot of times, one or two houses will sell for development and then they'll start harassing the next door neighbors, threatening, like, oh, if you don't sell to me, like, I'll undermine your foundation. They literally threaten that way. And like one of my neighbors on Fenimore reported that, like they saw one of these developers, and he was like, stop interfering with what I'm doing, and then he like flicks, like shows like he has like a gun on his arm or something like that, you know.
That's wild.
People bothering tenants, like literally like shoving their foot in the door when the tenants open the door to. And then ultimately, like, you know, there's one lady I know of Linden that, or Lennox, that she's between all of these huge developments that have gone up, and she's physically being squeezed out. Like, she really has no choice at this point, and even though she never wanted to leave. And that's what happens. It's not really by choice when people sell a lot of the time. Anyway, so, okay, so I want to start, you know, like writing some whereases, leading up to, you know, what our opposition is, and, you know, because we can't just say no. We have to give all the reasons. They have to be in ULURP language, etc. So.
Whereas the target population of 60% AMI does not address the affordability crisis, in which 39% is for people who can afford $1,000 or less. It does not address.
So why don't we start with that, right?
Yeah, yep.
So let's say, whereas, 69's median household income is $77,000.
I know, but Suki, you keep saying that, right? And I'm not addressing that group. I'm not addressing Parks and
Okay, no,
Gardens.
but this is-
I'm addressing Crown Heights.
Okay, Alicia,
The
there are
black
a lot,
community. I'm
Alicia,
really addressing the black community.
Alicia, there are lots of census districts in PLG that have less than a $77,000.
So where are you
So
getting
how do we get the
How did
median
you get?
income of $77,000?
Thank you.
That is
Who's
the
making the
district, that is the
120,000?
district-wide median income, the latest district-wide median income, and a lot of that is because, Alicia, a lot of that is because we've had tons of new development, right? And we've had tons of displacement, and median income has gone
Not
up.
in Crown Heights,
Median income has gone up throughout the city.
Not
That's
in
based
Crown
on-
Heights.
okay,
Not in
that's-
Crown Heights.
that
I
is
think
based
the
on the
Crown Heights
census.
numbers, the Crown Heights numbers is 50 to 55. That's it.
Okay, you know
All
what?
those census tracts in Crown Heights. That's what my concern is.
Unless you're talking about Crown Heights North, in which case they already got rid of the black people there.
Thank
Okay.
you. 20,000
No,
people.
no, it's true, like they already did, like they're already,
20,000 people.
they're already gone, so like now the
20,000
income
But that's
is
not
higher
here in
because they've
Crown
already,
Heights South.
Okay,
they've
so
already
I
gone through
don't
We're
the
still holding on
So,
here.
so this is.
Okay, so just
So
put a
unless you-
placeholder for the exact
Okay, so,
amount.
first of all, what you guys can do is, if you can generate a census map, right? Set district by district, I
Fair
think the latest, the 2020, the 2023 numbers should be out by now, or maybe in a couple of weeks, income. You know, if city planning isn't already doing this, you guys can do this for yourselves. Download the data from the census website, get the income census tract by census tract, right? We can certainly attach that as part of our submission. Okay, the reason I'm using the median income number, right, is because we have like one page to do whereases. I cannot go through every census
Well,
district.
but you can say whereas Crown Heights South, which is predominantly a black and low
We do
moderate
not-
income
we don't
community.
know-
I
We don't know
mean,
that, Alicia.
I'm sorry?
We do not, okay, get the data.
We're gonna get the
We'll get
data.
data. We'll
Get
get
the
the
data
data.
first.
We'll get the data.
And,
We'll get the data.
you know, keep in mind too, that the census districts are drawn the way they're drawn, right? And so Sterling Street and Lefferts are not in the same census tract necessarily as Ebbets Field, right? Keep that in mind.
We're aware of that.
They're not considered Crown Heights South.
Exactly. I'm not
That's
considering Crown
Flatbush.
Heights South. I'm Flatbush.
So, yeah, feel free to, you know, get it census tract by
We'll
census
get the
tract.
data.
But that information is important primarily when we're looking at, you know, individual developments, like 962 Franklin, right? If we're just looking at the entire district, we're looking at citywide tax amendments, I think it's enough to take the median number, right? Because remember that the AMI numbers have gone up substantially. So
Yes,
it's
but the
still,
77 is very close to the 60%.
and that's not a good thing, right? That's not a good thing that you're building, that you're giving all of these incentives just for the median person, right? I mean, in my opinion, we should be able to build market rate housing. Like, the median person is the market, and we should be able to build market rate housing without incentives, period. That's ridiculous.
Put that in. But
Are you saying that's what should happen? Or that's
Yes.
what is happening?
Yes, if you're building a building and the income group you're focused on is the medium income that exists in the area that you're building, why do we have to buy you?
Right.
No, she's saying for market rates.
No, that's what she's saying.
So what I'm saying is that, in my opinion, the market is the median
Yes.
person, right, the median household. And if you cannot build for the median household without any type of tax incentives, zoning incentives, or what have you, something is wrong. The market is out of whack and it needs to adjust, and that means that we should not be touching the zoning. And we should
Because
stop,
there are
and
other
we should
factors
stop
that drive
subsidizing,
the
and we
cost.
should stop subsidizing
Well, we
demand.
could just actually take that money and build our own stuff, like that would be the actual way to like address the crisis, instead of giving away the land and the tax incentives and everything to developers, like.
Right.
You
They
can build
don't-
more new model public
Right,
housing.
they do not truly want a market-based system, because in a market-based system, in a true market-based system where we don't subsidize demand, the market would come crashing down.
Right.
And, but we don't have to get into all of that, you know, rub a lot of people's wrong way. I think all we really need to say is that, you know, we are looking for affordable housing, and we define affordable housing as, you know, at or below 50% median income, like you were saying before, right?
Didn't we say a lot lower than that?
yeah, I said 20 to 30.
Right.
So we can pick whatever number that you
I
guys
think
want.
we should take 30 if we're talking.
Okay.
If they keep giving us the statistical data of the justification, 0.39, should we not be creating
Housing for that.
housing for that 0.39?
Yes.
I mean,
But they are, homeless shelters, no?
Oh, wow.
but that's the justification, right? They're pushing this down communities' throats and saying, you know, we're in a housing crisis, 0.39% people, you know, vacancy rate. Okay, well, are you creating housing for that vacancy rate? No.
And the other thing that's worth mentioning is, even though the median is at 77,000, we still have a good 30%, and this is according to the census website, we still have a good 30% of the community that's at less than $50,000 a year. And those are the people that are gonna have the most trouble finding housing, especially if they're displaced. Okay,
And make
so
sure you
we're-
put in that they have a 94% chance of being homeless. People who make under $25,000.
Okay, I need to make sure we have quorum. One,
Oh,
two,
yeah,
three,
I've
four,
done a meeting, I forgot to tell you, I'm sorry.
5.
That was 10 and
One,
50.
2, 3, 4,
5. There's 6 present and 2 absent, so if
still
you'll have
have one.
5. If you leave, you'll have 5.
You still have one.
Out of
Right?
8?
Yeah, you still have one.
Out of 8.
Okay, alright. So we've got to try and get through this
I
quickly.
do it.
So wait,
If
do
you
we still have
leave,
quorum if I
it'll
leave?
be 4.
No.
No?
You lost one.
No, okay,
I'm supposed to be at a meeting at
You
8:30.
were 8 people, right?
Yeah.
So
You have 5.
okay.
if he leaves, then it'll be 4. You'll have half.
No, you can't, you have to have
Half plus
more
1.
than.
Okay, so this is what we're gonna do, and I hate doing this, but are you guys willing to write, these whereases and the UAP section over email?
Yeah.
Everybody will be on it, we can include the members of the public as well, it's all fine, we just have to get this done. So,
But you can't vote on, what
You
you're
can't vote
voting,
on
you
it.
can't vote on it.
No.
okay, so,
You're not gonna be able to vote on it, you would have to vote it on in an open meeting.
Unless you
How can
voted
you vote
in
in
your
Google?
meetings.
You do it,
No.
you do it.
Well, do you wanna do, no, because it's coming from the committee, correct?
the subcommittee.
So the subcommittee has to vote.
Okay, so let's just try to vote on a couple, okay? So, I'm gonna do whereas CB9's median household income is $77,000 and the UAP affordability level is at 60% of AMI, which is $76,000 for a family of 3 as of 2023. Let's say CB9 does not consider the UAP units to be affordable for, okay, so whereas CB9's median household income is $77,000 and 30% of our households make less than $50,000 a year, and the UAP affordability level is at 60% of AMI, which is $76,000 for a family of 3 as of 2023. CB9 does not
No,
consider.
you have to do the 2024, and that's 83.
Okay,
So let me just find it, and I'll give it to you. You need to do.
83,000.
You need to do.
What's 83,000, sorry?
I think it's 83, but I'll do
That's
it right
60%
now.
of AMI as of 2024.
Right.
CB9 does not consider the UAP units to be affordable for the households in our district who need affordable housing.
A family of 4 is 83,000. A family of 3 is 83,880. A family of 4 is 93,180. So you're doing 3, a family of 4, family of 3.
Family of 3.
$83,880.
Okay, so here's what I have. Whereas CB9's median annual household income is $77,000 and 30% of our households make less than $50,000 a year, and the UAP affordability level is at 60% of AMI, which is $83,880 for a family of 3 as of 2024. CB9 does not consider the UAP units to be affordable for the households in our district who need affordable housing.
I think you should also mention the fact that, you should say something about the statistical data that they have provided. Whereas they provided the statistical data of justification for the city of Yes based upon 0.39 vacancy rate, which states which means that people who make under $25,000 have a 94% chance of being homeless.
Okay, so let's say after the first whereas, okay, so whereas,
Something like that.
you gotta give it to me, because we're very
Okay,
short on time.
okay, whereas the city of Yes has used the justification for, a little bit of housing everywhere to address the 0.39% vacancy rate.
Okay, so whereas the city of Yes, has stated that the justification for UAP is the 0.94% vacancy rate.
0.39%.
Is that justification for UAP or for this city of Yes overall?
Well, I just
They're
saw
gonna
them
use
use the 3.9.
Yes, is the 0.39% vacancy rate for who?
It's for people who can afford less than $1,000 a month.
Okay, for rental units at less than $1,000 a month.
And whereas none of the targeted universal, what are they calling that now? Universal. Okay, but the universal target is for people who obviously,
You're a key.
yeah, they
Okay, so here we go. Whereas CB9's median annual household income is $77,000 and 30% of our households make less than $50,000 a year. And whereas the city of Yes has stated that the justification for zoning density increases.
Oh, okay, I have it. Less than 1,100, the vacancy rate is a meter point 39.
Okay, so here we go. Whereas CB9, blah, blah, okay, whereas the city of Yes has stated that the justification for zoning density increases is the 0.39% vacancy rate for units renting for less than $1,100 per month, yet the UAP affordability level is at 60% of AMI, which is $83,880 for family of 3 as of 2024. Therefore, CB9 does not consider the UAP units to be affordable for the households in our district or our city who most need affordable housing. Okay, can we vote on that?
I think so. I mean, I'm just gonna throw in another point, sorry, but I feel like I'm okay with that, but if you look at the average median income over just the past few years, I got many tabs, but it significantly increased over the past few years. So that means, like, obviously there's already stuff going on. I doubt everybody's getting raises. There's displacement. So it's like that number, obviously, if you really look at tenants who've been here over time, it's probably lower, that average median. So to the point you're probably making, you know,
The
so if
long-term tenants are definitely lower than the average.
yeah, if you extracted probably the newcomers, then
Right,
you'd probably
you would have a lower median.
I was trying to find
Yes.
some data that would break it out, but I think, you know, as good as I can
Yes.
get for now is, 'cause I found
I
the
don't know if
70,
there's data comparing.
the 77 that you have.
Well,
In the
you-
census, there is a place that says how long you've been here. There is a place that
And
says
they
that.
also, it's also by race as well.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Need to head out, but I'm looking forward to serving on the board with all of you guys.
What's your name?
Max.
Max.
Yeah. So you guys can
Nice
see.
to meet you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet
Hope
you.
you have fun.
Learned a lot.
Get used to long
It's very
meetings.
important to come to
My
our
meetings are not the
community and learn
longest.
things.
Fred's meetings
Yeah, really
sometimes go
quick.
until 10 o'clock.
Excuse me, what? What? What?
My meetings are not the longest. Fred sometimes has meetings
Fred's
until 10
transportation.
o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
No, as
No, the
executive
community
or
board. Oh, yeah.
general board. They
Oh,
always
yeah,
say
they
all
like
this.
these upcoming meetings when you have the vote.
Oh, that's gonna be.
Okay, so let's keep going.
Did we vote?
I'm fine to vote
Okay,
on
so
that.
did we vote? Okay,
yeah.
so
Repeat
Regina
the
is a
request for vote
yes.
again?
Yes.
Wait. Are we ready to vote for, repeat it again? Where is this vote going?
We're just voting on this so that we don't have to vote on it next time, because we're gonna have like
Okay,
1,000.
we're not sending
We're
anything to
not
land
sending
use.
it to land use.
Okay, all right.
How many things are we trying to vote on?
Like two things.
Okay.
Whereas.
Two whereas. I'm extremely late to attend the association meeting. Just saying.
Turn to the last page.
Whereas facility.
Okay,
That's
so,
their presence, yeah.
so all in favor, say aye. Aye. Beverly,
What are we saying I too? I keep saying
the
it.
whereas is that I just read.
Like,
Read it again.
Whereas CB9's median annual household income is $77,000 and 30% of our households make less than $50,000 a year, and whereas the city of Yes has stated that the justification for zoning density increases is the 0.39% vacancy rate for units renting for less than $1,100 per month, yet the UAP affordability level is at 60% of AMI, which is $83,880 for a family of 3 as of 2024. Therefore, CB9 does not consider the UAP
good.
units to be affordable for the households in
I'm
our
good.
district or as most of the
I'm good.
Federal housing
Okay.
violation? Through all the federal housing violation makes some things color impact. So the, never mind.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
federal housing violation.
next.
Fair.
Whereas City of Yes aims to build 100,000 units across the city by 2040 by, quote, adding a little more housing everywhere, unquote, and whereas CB9 has already built 4,000 units of housing from 2010 to 2023, and whereas there are over 2,500 permitted units in the district, and whereas CB9 has, somebody could give me the percentage of non-white residents?
Oh, I
X percent.
have to go into the
We'll get it.
census, but that's in the census, right?
Yeah.
We'll get it.
We're still fixing some of this.
And whereas CB9 zoning already permits over 38,000 units to be built, and whereas CB9 zoning already permits over 30,000 new housing units to be built, resulting in demolitions and displacements of tenants. And whereas City of Yes UAP zoning increases are highest in R6 zones on narrow streets, increasing zoning density from 2.43 to 3.9, and second highest in R7 zones from 3.44 to 5.0, compared with the zoning increases in contextually zoned communities. And whereas, and I have to put this number in, X percentage of District 9 is covered by R6 and R7 zoning. Therefore, the City of Yes UAP would significantly increase the already high as of right development potential in our community, resulting in several, resulting in the direct displacement of tens of thousands of residents, the majority people of color. Therefore, CB9 strongly opposes the City of Yes zoning density increases, believing them to be a violation of, okay, so what do I want to say? CB9 strongly opposes the City of Yes zoning density increases, which would trigger significant adverse environmental impacts.
A destroy and rebuild model that would displace thousands of residents.
Okay, strongly opposes the City of Yes zoning density increases and its destroy and displace model, which would trigger
Destroy and rebuild,
destroy and rebuild model.
which would cause displacement of long-term tenants.
Okay, so I already said resulting in the direct displacement of tens of thousands of residents, the majority people of color. Therefore, CB9 strongly opposes the City of Yes zoning density increases and its destroy and rebuild model, which would trigger significant adverse environmental impacts, significant racial equity impacts, and fair housing violations.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna tell you, well,
all in favor?
Now you know I'm on board
Any
with that.
opposed? Okay. We have 5, okay. So we are done with that. And so let me just tell you what I'm gonna try and fill in and what I need help. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. And what I need help with.
that's the fun.
We need to fill in the percentage of non-white residents.
We will get that for you.
Yes, and we need to start taking a hard look at the racial equity impact analysis that they did, which I'm sure was
They
wholly
did
inadequate.
it right
Garbage, I've
there,
been
we
looking
opened
at
it up, they said they couldn't do it.
They're basically saying, oh, well, there's a significant barrier preventing New York City from building much needed housing and increasing housing opportunity for everyday New Yorkers is our restrictive zoning.
Oh, so they actually didn't do the zoning, then they can be, the racial impact, then they can be sued?
Well,
This is what I thought you had to.
That,
They're basically saying, oh, you know, zoning changes will help.
Based on
No,
what?
they're
They're
going
going
to
to
sue
do it.
them.
They didn't do it. I
No,
mean, they didn't
no,
do it.
no, they should be sued for not doing the racial impact analysis.
Yeah,
And
and what do
everything
you
else
think,
in
well, the
play.
second, what do you think the appellate court was going to say to them about that lawsuit?
Okay,
You would
They're
have
gonna
to
overturn
So-
it like they've done
Um,
every time.
Thank you.
but certainly I can
But
try,
it
I can
would
try
have
to
to be
do the
federal.
analysis for other
And I don't
districts
know if
as
it was
well.
federal. There's no order.
I think you're gonna find that the result is appalling, because like even in the low density districts in eastern Queens and so on, where they're like kind of like halving the lot sizes and increasing the density quite significantly. And it may look like it's not a lot, but it is going to be a lot of units even for them. And these are majority black communities. Like I
Yeah.
just saw a video from someone, posted a video from someone from Cambria Heights. You
That's a
know,
majority
like
black
Southeast
community.
Laurelton, you know, Rosedale, these are majority black communities, and they are, those R1 and R2 districts, even though you wouldn't think they're adding a lot of units, they will be able, it won't be affordable, but they'll be able to knock down like,
Yes.
you know, 5,000 single family houses and build
Yes.
5,000 more.
They're all fully detached.
Or like, you know,
All
these
of them.
small
All
apartment
of them
buildings.
is attached.
And a lot of them have air
Yards.
rights.
Cambria.
Like,
So-
yeah, the-
Yep.
All of that, all
So I think that
big
I
lots.
think it's definitely worth doing the racial impact analysis. I think you're gonna find that between the low density and the higher density communities like ours, that the impact is on certain communities.
Say it out loud, Suki, don't say it like it's poison, say it out loud.
I'm not saying because I haven't done the analysis yet, but
Right.
my feeling,
Our assumption
when I think about,
is-
you know, when I think about who's gonna be impacted, us, right? The parts of CV17 that are not contextually zoned, that have a lot of R6 and R7 still.
Oh my God.
Bushwick still has a lot of unrestricted R6.
None of those areas were downzoned under Bloomberg, so they're all private.
Those were all the targeted areas for
Exactly.
development
And then
in the Bloomberg
Even
era,
communities
so.
that were generally downzoned or generally contextually zoned, you still have these large areas, like for example, these NYCHA campuses in unrestricted R6. I don't know what's gonna happen to them.
Oh, Suki, come
But
on.
Suki, I remember that you had said you had done an analysis about the anticipated amount of residential apartments that would be a total for the city of Yes.
Yes,
Do you
and I
have
need
that?
to, I do have it, but I need to update it for our district and across the entire city, because new data, since the last time I did that, new data has come in, and I wanna make sure that it's completely accurate.
So when do you think you might have that? Cause I think that's really
I
important.
can do that in the next, I'll try to do it in the next few days.
Okay.
But
Okay,
it's
very
really,
important.
it's really a very, very significant and appalling number. And you know, even if I was in one
What's
of the,
it? When you say it, what's it?
the total amount of units that could be created, right?
As a
So
result of
they
city,
also, one other thing that I should mention, they also did a market analysis. And so it's, like if you look at districts with very, very high market prices, it's not likely that they're gonna take advantage of UAP.
Right.
Because they can just do, you know, the choice is for them, like, let's say you can build 100 apartments. And UAP is saying, well, you can build 130 as long as 30 of those apartments are affordable rentals. But now the guy is saying to myself, well, like, no, I could just do 100 condos and I won't have to do any affordable housing, and the condos are so much more profitable than rentals from the get-go. And that's exactly what we saw with the guy at Franklin Avenue, the 962 Franklin. I asked him at the end of the session, I said, would you do 60% affordable housing with 30% of the units, 60% affordable housing, in exchange for an increase to 3.9, like what they said under UAP? And he said, no, that wouldn't pencil out because you're not giving us additional market rate floor area. And so in that location, that's the kind of location where luxury rentals and luxury condos are doable. But in East Flatbush, where prices are more affordable, it might not be. You know, in parts of PLG, in parts of Crown Heights where prices are a bit more affordable, it might not be. And so those are the areas, the more affordable areas are the ones where they're gonna be looking at demolishing and building the, you know, like I was saying, the whole thing of, they were saying in this article, they're looking at $200 per buildable square foot. So if you look at the UAP increases and you look at what's already there, what things are already selling for, one of two things is gonna happen. Land values go through the roof and things get even less affordable for everyone. Or developers start buying all the houses and demolishing them. And, you know, most of our district just isn't in that, like that little section of Franklin Avenue, by the Botanic Gardens, is one of the few places I've seen where they're doing $1 million condos.
And
It's
in the-
not,
1.5 million to be exact.
In the case of condo conversions, because it's I walk, and I'm always curious about like, what is that going for? These new condos that go up, they're significantly more expensive than some of the like, you know, single family home houses.
Right.
And then you have the maintenance fees that are a couple
Right.
$100
Right.
per month or whatever have you. So just and some of them are pretty small
Mm-hmm.
condos that go up. You know, so like there's so many factors.
so it's just
Yeah.
overall gonna result in a situation where in those parts of the you know, in those parts of the district where luxury condos can be built, they will continue to be built. And in those parts of the district where it's a little iffy, stuff will be knocked down and you'll get some housing for the median family, but also a whole bunch of luxury, of higher market rate housing. Okay, so back to what we need to do in terms of, someone, and you guys can help me with this, you know, we need to look at the percentage of non-white residents. You probably should be adding a statement about the lack of racial equity impact analysis.
And also the fact that they refused to predict exactly the type of affordable housing that they
can't do it.
They refused to do it. They refused to look at the anticipated residential affordability. They said that they could not, based upon what they were doing, make a prediction about the target population or the populations that would actually create housing. They're creating housing for. They can't do a
Because
breakdown.
that population's not here.
Has anybody done a study of just like, I would just throw out Bed-Stuy, for example, of just like it was this, at this point, there's X amount of housing that's, and then the demographic shifts. I mean, at the end of the day, you play that out into all the different neighborhoods. I mean, that's, you know, that's the answer.
Yeah, you have to look at the census.
Yeah.
I'm just shocked that they refused to do that. I mean, the
Oh,
whole
but we
reason
see
was
what they-
because of the
Specifically a racial study,
affordability.
that's
They
right.
keep saying they're doing this to create affordable housing, but you can't make predictions on that target. They literally have zeros.
And that's the thing, a prediction technically, I mean, find a like, I mean, any kind of math statistical
Right,
scenario.
exactly,
You would find
exactly,
any sort of
exactly.
model in which
Why
that
are
is
trying
done.
to predict what will happen
Right.
if we implement all these changes?
Right.
Yeah.
We're sitting here doing it,
101.
we're not getting paid for anything, and we
This is
kinda
what
know
kills
what's
me,
going
okay,
on.
the amount of work that we've done as volunteers.
Yeah.
And how many of them are there and how much do they get paid?
Right.
And that's why I do
And
not
not only-
embrace that title of advisory.
Yeah.
And not-
That's
and
why
not-
I don't embrace
And
it.
not
And
only
everybody
that,
else.
and not only
Yeah.
that, but it wasn't just the staff, they also hired an outside consulting company. How much did that
Oh my
consulting
God.
company get?
Millions.
That's
To create this crap?
This needs to be,
no,
this needs to be
to
part
train
of,
them on how to lie to us.
this needs to be part of budget discussions. What is the budget of the Department of City Planning and what is it going toward?
Yeah.
If they are not doing these studies,
That's
you
the
know,
point.
we and also like in terms of the contracts that they're putting out, we need to look at what those RFPs were, how much they're making, you know, I mean, the amount of work that we're doing.
And what was
is just
involved
crazy.
in them coming up with this? Because what we're looking at in the city of Yes is someone who was somewhere else and they had no idea what the communities look like.
I mean, you went to that meeting, what was it, before, I can't remember which one it was the larger
The
one.
virtual one or the
The,
one
That's why
the
they-
virtual
that's
one,
why
and the
they
lobbying
wanna do
that,
it,
you
because
know,
they
took
have to
place.
show
And
exactly
I'm like,
what
I don't know,
target
it was
and the
insane.
low
I mean,
income
because especially
never
what
be
some of the
shown.
folks were saying. I live in Tribeca, and you know, it's like what? But there was a lot of lobbying, to say the least. I
Yes.
forgot the specific name of the group particularly that was for it, but they came strong to do their commentary.
Okay, so I am emailing
They did it
you
right.
guys our draft, and you can see where I put in the X's as placeholders.
Okay.
Um,
And that's what we fill in the census information, right?
yes, and we also need to check like what percentage of the district is.
Sorry, just a question for you all.
Yeah.
Do you all use the equitable development data
We
explorer?
have used it, yes, we have.
If you
used
want
Do we
to,
use what? Say it again.
The Equitable Development Data Explorer.
if you
It has
want to
been
pull numbers
extremely
from there, they're
Yeah.
from 2020, but you can get some of the change numbers between 2000 and 2020. If you want the more updated 2024 numbers, the tool has not yet been updated for that. But that can be if you want, that should be the data that they're using for the racial equity report.
Okay,
And so if you want
that'd be
to sort of
great.
give them their data back to them in that way, that is a good source.
That'd be really helpful, thank you for letting us know.
What was it called again?
Equitable Data Development Explorer?
Yes.
Oh, is that what you call it? Data
Now, what
Development
does that
Explorer.
do? Say that?
So that was part of the legislation that created the requirement for a racial equity report to be provided at the beginning of the ULIRP process. It takes all of the development, all of the data by community district and consolidates it and disaggregates it by race, by income, and gives you those predictions. So it's the back end of what is required. When developers are pulling that report, they're pulling from existing data, so they're not creating it out of whole cloth every time. So sometimes what was happening previously during the environmental review process is someone would say, well, we're going to count this part of a graveyard we're going to count it as a park, and therefore we're going to be underneath a particular threshold. The idea was that DCP and HVD would create a data source that it could be shared by both developers and the community to have a shared point of reference for what's happening in the neighborhoods. So
We need that.
it's there, it's available, you can download the data. It's a great tool if you haven't used it.
Can you write it down for me and send it
I
to
can
me?
also email
Yeah, if you
but
can email it
it's-
to the district,
you've got
the
it up,
district
yeah.
Because
office.
we've got a couple of rezoning, and we're looking for the racial impact studies. And so you're saying that they have to use the data from this particular source in order to make their predictions about what would happen? But,
Not necessarily their predictions, but to say who is here currently,
oh, okay.
what the changes happen, and then they
Okay.
have to make a fair housing statement, which is what they've done for City of Yes. But they have not gone into because it's citywide, they have not presented the data for every single district, but you can get that data yourself to see some of those changes and should be using that to inform your recommendation.
I'm sorry, I already pulled it up and I have a displacement map. I guess
Oh, they gave you a displacement map.
from a data standpoint, you said it's more of a forecast of the risk.
This is
if I
based
were-
on existing conditions, so it's not saying, here's
And
what
this-
will happen under a particular scenario, it's saying there's like a current level of risk that's based on the market factor, which is like how much development and things are happening, the underlying vulnerability of the population, like low income, they're looking at a set of other things
But they're
on housing
using 4
quality as well.
years? 4 years? They're using 2020?
This was published 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, which was the most current data that was available at
Okay.
the time.
So it's about a year and a half.
Isn't that wasn't it delayed 1 year because of the COVID?
No, it's not the way.
I mean, can I say
Yeah.
that? Yeah. You know, I do numbers for a living.
Oh,
Rather
okay,
than
you do
other
numbers.
things.
So talk
But it's
to us.
just, I question, it's just like,
Oh, the
I'll
highest.
I'll scrub through it. Well, we're not the highest, but it's
How
also
so?
like under the scenario though, like you said it doesn't account for any scenarios, right? So say City of Yes happens or whatever have you, we're already at a just, a level of risk, right? And if it's only X amount of years of data to start with, then you're looking at obviously current. There's a lot of
It's
numbers that are
looking at-
already
it's
funky
looking at
because they
current
already have new
yeah,
residents
just to
in.
clarify, it's looking at current displacement risk, not based on a scenario, so it's saying,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I get, but the current our numbers are already a little funky because there's already been development, and this has just been an ongoing conversation with. So, you know.
There's some of those components that are in it, but it's
No,
not
I
the
think
same.
that it is, there's definitely significantly more risk if you apply.
The data is,
yes.
the data being available.
Or like our
It's not
area,
like-
right now it shows a heavy high
Yeah.
risk of displacement in Bed-Stuy, Williamsburg, whatever, that's already
Yeah, really.
very
That's
expensive. It's
all
not,
they have
they're
to
gonna
do.
have to move out, if
Yeah.
they leave, if they get pushed out, they're definitely leaving the neighborhood.
That's what.
For us,
That's
I think
like
there's
the
so
lead
many
that.
different
Okay.
layers, you're still gonna be
That's why
displaced,
we're
but I think
Yes.
there's some nuance, I just,
It's missing the historical
yeah.
But this
things
is
that
what
come up to
Williamsburg
this, which I
also.
disagree with. I think that.
Yes.
Suki, according to
Okay.
this
I
data,
would agree with you. It's a-
Crown Heights has a 67.7% of people in Crown Heights are black, people of color. And, right, Crown Heights South, our South. And 40% of the people are below, have 200% of the federal poverty, are below the federal poverty rate.
Okay, so the town of
200.
has what percent
200%
of the?
of the federal poverty rate. 40% of the people,
Never, give me the first one again.
okay,
67%.
67.7% of the people are people of color. 40% of the people have incomes below 200% of the federal poverty rate.
How much?
200%
Below the federal poverty rate.
below the federal poverty rate.
It's like
40% of the people have
40%.
that.
40%. Those are very good, so that's important.
Okay, so you're saying 40% of households have,
Or below 200% of the federal poverty rate. That means we're poor.
That's right.
40% of our people in this community are poor.
okay, so actually, the AMI, what is exactly is the federal poverty rate? 'Cause I'm not-
40,000.
No, it's depends on the size of the family, and there are numbers released every year similar to AMI. So
Oh.
for a family of two, the federal poverty rate, or how big of a family do you want? Family of four?
Three.
Family of three, federal poverty rate is 25, so 200% with that 50K value.
So that's very similar to my number, that 30% make less
You're-
than 40,000.
You're on the
Right,
money.
we can make it
The
40.
data's on the money.
Yes,
Okay,
it's
so
very
that's not
important.
changing my ask. Federal government suing the city of New York for disparity in housing.
They
Not
said
changing my
that
ask.
for.
And who
that
is our federal
56%.
representative that you need to talk to?
Yvette Clark is ours.
That Clark.
All right, people, you know what you have
And
to
she's
do.
working on an AMI, her and
Right.
Hildebrand.
Are they back on it again?
Yep,
Back again?
yep.
Are they gonna get it in before?
I don't understand why
Didn't
I've
get it
spoken
in
to
when
so
we
many
had-
people, I've never
when we
even
had
heard that they're doing it.
control.
What the hell is that?
But
They
they
put
did
it
it
up,
before.
but they
Claim.
didn't, it never
But
moved
they have-
forward
right.
because it was Republican led, so it never got,
Right.
it never got moved forward.
But for them to be
When
doing
we-
something for people, more people should know about it. There are too many people that don't know about it. To get behind, to be able to use that as an issue to promote them to vote that particular party.
Right.
It's
Well, she should do better outreach then.
Right.
When
That's
was
my
the last time
point.
she came to our community board?
I can't even tell you.
All right then.
All right,
That's
people,
why we don't know.
But that's
Reach
but
out-
you
reach
see my
out to
point,
her-
right?
Reach out to
They had
her,
about down-
reach out
about
to her
downstate.
office, reach out to her office.
No,
I am.
I actually
Going home
went
tonight.
to
Our
the
ULARP meeting is
community
in a,
board,
our
stand up
ULARP
and
meeting
tell
is
us
in a
what
week.
Okay, sorry, Siggy, go ahead. Go
Our
ahead.
ULARP meeting is in a week. Reach out to your elected representatives and ask them to attend. And
She just got
I
it.
am.
why
I
it
did
is
not.
so important.
Didn't they
Because-
send out a letter
Yes.
to every elected
Yes.
official? Did
Yes.
not CB9 send out a letter to every
Well,
elected official and ask them to
nevertheless,
show up
I
and
think
they
they
all
may
ignored it?
I think they may send to emails that aren't checked.
Exactly, because like the last time I tried to
That's
invite
what's
elected
happened to
officials
me.
to some neighborhood meeting, I had to
How do you
actually
have an
pick up
email?
the
How does a
phone and
community
call
board
and
not have the
speak to,
accurate email of their elected
speak to a
officials?
specific
I just think they're not looked at.
No, no,
Wait,
no.
go
Do you know,
ahead.
let
Guys,
me
listen.
tell you guys something.
No,
Do you know
no,
why
no.
Crystal Hudson's rep actually showed up to that first meeting about Franklin Avenue? Because I went on the website and I looked up specific staffers' email addresses and put specific people's emails on the invitation.
We've done that.
I don't buy that. I know that's what you had to do. They are our elected officials.
We named them too.
We never,
Suki.
let me tell you, one thing
Crystal's
about Jesse
office.
Hamilton,
Thank you.
we never had to invite him to our block association
And there-
meetings.
He
He
came.
would come and show
Yes.
up and just,
Show up.
I knew
So
you
they're
had
all
a
And we
meeting
were
this
just
showing up
second
for
Thursday.
photo ops.
No, and we were just
No,
having
he
this
would
discussion
come.
We
earlier
haven't
today.
seen Senator Hamilton.
There is a
I mean,
generation,
what's his name? I don't
there's
even
a
know his
generation
name.
of social media
Zelnor
politicians.
Myrie.
And we're
Zelnor.
in that
Have we ever
generation right
seen
now.
We've never seen Zelnor at a community board meeting.
I think you probably have to like tweet him or whatever.
We've never seen him at a
Hey.
community board meeting. Not
Jesse,
one
I
time.
did see. he
Despite
came-
the law that says that they must attend community board meetings.
Okay, well, you guys, you do what you have to do to bring the elected officials to these meetings. That's all I have to say.
I
And
love
just a
that.
caveat,
I love
like,
that.
Oh,
glad she got to this,
LA,
but like,
LA,
she
Ray,
didn't mention
he
it was
always
that
comes and plays with
67%
Yeah.
was
Well,
Crown
we
Heights
didn't-
South.
we
You
didn't-
have a
we
good
didn't vote
percentage
for Ellie. We
that goes
voted
up
that.
to Meek, so like
Yeah.
here it
I
goes
never
even higher.
accepted
So
it.
like up to,
Well, he
you
said
know,
community
Winthrop
board.
Park, there's only this small bucket that's not,
But
so we
it's
technically,
pictures
it
of himself.
goes
Okay, so Prospect will
Because he asked
return
me
to
to send
Wingate.
it.
So actually, what is
almost
the
80%.
So what is that percentage in
combination
Wingate?
of- Oh, sorry,
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
that's all right.
So what is the
I don't even know how
combination of, so our district is actually the combination of Crown Heights South, Prospect Lefferts Gardens, Wingate, and a little bit of this.
Yeah, this should go out, but this should be the line, Clarkson or whatever, yeah.
So what's the percentage?
Well, the
So,
two, you
People of
can't,
color.
can you, I wish you could do
Oh, wait.
both of them.
So PLG Wingate is 79.6% non-white, and Crown Heights South is 67.7.
So we're looking at all areas that they're dumping upon over 50%. That's what we're looking at right now.
Absolutely.
And again, I say,
I mean, also left the gardens.
Very 67%.
Okay, so why don't I just say, whereas over 70% of CD9's residents are people of color, because it's at 80% for PLG
I
Wingate
like that.
and 67% for Crown Heights South.
exactly.
I'm just gonna say over 70%.
There we
Yeah.
go.
We still hanging in.
Okay, so,
We tell that to Reynoso.
Yeah, it's like the only district
He
that
wants our vote,
maintained,
he better start
its
voting
population,
correctly.
except for East New York had an increase, and I imagine people from northern Crown Heights that were displaced moved to East New York. East New York during the census was the
Only community that
only
gained
community
black
that
people.
gained black.
That's because of Charles
population.
Barron.
Yes,
That's because of Charles Barron.
that's the only one. People
The
that
only
were
one.
displaced went there.
Only
They were
one.
bragging about it,
Oh,
But
Charles
at the
Barron
same
was
time,
bragging at it.
And we can't say that that's gonna happen with the city of Yes.
Cause Charles Barron's not there anymore.
That too, but everybody's being, every,
Yes.
Everyone's being affected.
right.
Everybody's being, I can't imagine any community board will be supporting the city of Yes.
And I am gonna
Do you
reach
know
out to
of any?
Yvette Clark
I
about a
know of any
lawsuit.
right now
We
that
am.
swing
However,
board
it
or
sounds
swing-
as is one.
You do?
No,
You know?
There's so many folks that are reading it now for the first time.
Yeah, there
and
you go.
reviewing
Are you
it.
kidding me? There you go.
No, the details.
The details, the fine
The details
print.
have not been out, and so people are looking at those details with a great deal. There's a lot of conversations and attending a lot of meetings,
Okay, good.
and so
Is our
To be
meeting very different?
Yeah, how are we doing?
no, they're doing great. You all are reviewing the
I'm
recommendations.
aware-
You've been in conversation for a long time about this. You're intimately aware of the issues that are in
And
your
when is city
neighborhood.
planning gonna come and present to that?
They were at the borough board this evening.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
we
borough
had asked-
board.
Wondered if it was
Oh,
tonight.
we
We
missed
had asked them,
that.
we
We
had
had
asked them
some
to
nice
come.
time the
Okay,
last
so
time. I
just so
think
you guys
we
know,
had
we
some
had,
tables
we
and
had
stuff.
asked them to come
Yeah.
tonight.
Guys,
They said that they could not come. So Dante, I'm asking Dante
Who
to
said
ask,
that they couldn't come?
city planning said that they couldn't come tonight because they're presenting at borough board. But Dante has set
Why
aside
didn't
May
anybody tell us?
May 23rd as a hearing date, and we are asking them to come on the 23rd so we can do a full public hearing. on that date.
23rd of
So
May?
we're having a
Yes.
hearing?
What time?
I would assume,
Seven.
I
It would be
mean,
7?
6:37.
Should start these meetings
Well,
earlier.
we don't want
It's
it,
hard
there's
to
too
get in
much in
person
one
meetings to
proposal
start
to
with
try to
people
get
seven.
a broad brushed.
They're gonna do a 20 minute,
I would
20-minute
just
presentation
remind you
and
that
tell you.
we are, as the Borough President's Office, we also have an advisory vote. We make a recommendation. The vote is with City Council and with City Planning
We
Commission.
also noticed that Reynoso went against his borough board and voted yes when the borough board voted no. We also noticed that Reynoso voted yes when the majority of the community boards voted no. So we're not very hopeful that he's
I will
going to.
take that back to our office.
Are you
Yes,
the
thank
new
you. We're not very
are you
hopeful,
the new
especially
land use
because he
director?
wants to
Who's
run
that?
for
Are you the
mayor.
new land use
I am the new
director?
land use
Oh,
director.
cool, okay. So,
I'm
there's
serious, he
something I
wants to
wanna
run
ask
for
you
mayor.
about,
What do you
which
mean?
is, in the city charter, there's a provision in there, which is not very well known, but it's in there, that the borough president has the power to force city planning to certify community plans. That's 197C. And I know that Bushwick had a community plan that he helped develop when he was council member for Bushwick, that city planning refused to pass because all the usual, no, you're not giving us enough, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
No,
Right?
that's not what
And-
happened. That's not what happened, Suki. He refused to support it because they would not compromise on the manufacturing zone.
They who?
So whatever,
The
so whatever
Department
the
of
reason
Planning.
was, the Department
There are a
of
number
City-
of reasons. That
Yeah, the
are-
Department
It was,
of City
I was involved, I was
But,
in there
so as
protesting.
council member, he probably can't do anything about that, although in theory, although I have been told by city planning on other zoning applications, that if the applicant wants it certified and it's complete and correct, then we have no choice but to certify
That's
it.
not
This
true.
happened with Franklin Avenue, that we told them that the council member did not want it certified as is, and and the guy from city planning says, well, if the applicant wants it certified, we don't have a choice as long as, we're just there to see if it's technically complete.
That's
So,
not true.
But in any case, the borough president, but they do sometimes hold these things up like endlessly, but the borough president has the power to force them to certify within 6 months. So we're wondering if we're gonna see Reynoso use that power, you know, first of all, why not on behalf of Bushwick, that's his plan with his community, you know, and maybe for other communities too. You know, I don't know if you're aware of this.
I would have to get back to you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a very specific question, and I want to give you that answer.
So, and I remember I brought this up to Richard Barak, who was the mayor's land use director, but
He was
he
land use director for
before.
BBP
And
for 20 years.
He says,
Yes.
okay, so
He
Richard knows everything, he's super knowledgeable. So he goes, and then he goes, well, yes, but nobody's ever used that power because it would cause a political crisis.
Political crisis.
I mean, it's
Yes,
2024
because
with
you
a
are
lot going
going
on.
against the
Somebody
mayor.
needs
The
to.
mayor does
speak
not
up
want
on
to
their
certify
power.
an application, the
So-
Department of City Planning does not certify it.
But we know that
Okay,
Reynoso
you'll live
is,
through it. You'll
we
live
know that
through it.
Reynoso is a
But
rebel,
that's
and it's not
what they
afraid
control,
to
they
do
control, it's the mayor who
what he
controls
needs
the
to do.
Department of City Planning.
right, for the people. So we're just wondering, you
Did the
know,
mayor
that's a thought.
changed his mind?
But that's only because we filed the lawsuit and we showed the lawyers
Yes.
all the evidence we had. So they had no other choice.
Because of that lawsuit.
Because of that, we had the smoking gun from the Parks Department saying that it would cause damage. So they had no other choice, because they knew we were gonna take them to court.
So you're saying you do want to make a 197C proposal?
Well, you know, as far as I know, no 197C has ever made it out of city planning. But, like I said, the borough president has a proposal to certify 197C, and, we're just wondering if he's gonna.
We know that's never gonna happen.
It's for.
So are
never
we
been
doing
done,
it because
it's
it's
not.
never done before? Is that why we're not doing it?
Well, usually you do a 197A.
So typically, so what has been done in the past is 197As. Most people are concerned that 197As have not been reflective of the community plans, because in the past what happened was city planning took the 197A and they drastically changed it, and then they jammed it down the community's throat. That's what happened to Williamsburg. right?
7 years making the plan.
197C is not a proposal, okay, so the difference between A, B, and C. A is a proposal that's put forward by the community board or by a city agency or by the Department of City Planning. C is a proposal that can be put forward by any group or individual, right? So in other words, a community group, even, or the community board even can put together this plan.
They
And it's
tried
your-
that already and possibly
And
left it
it's
started.
your plan, right? It's your plan. The thing is, city planning still has to certify it, the commission still has to vote for it, and then the city council votes for it.
And the
Right.
study has to be done, and now we're in a full-blown rezoning application. Foster Lefferts Gardens attempted to do that, they started that. 3 people gave them money for it. Eric Adams gave them money, the city council person gave them money, and the assembly person gave them money. We filed the lawsuit, that ended that.
I've never seen that
community
plan.
ended.
I mean, the only
We
one
ended that
the only,
whole idea about doing a plan.
the only one that I've ever seen is that block of Fenimore Street.
No, no,
by-
that's
No,
that's
with
not
the church?
true, Suki, you
No,
were all a part
um,
of this,
you
that's not true.
remember Fenimore
You know.
2, right? They wanted to, they had a single family covenant, and so they wanted to go down from R6 to R2.
That's late, that was late in the game.
Thank
That
you,
was
that was
after
later
the
in the
plan.
game.
That was recent.
I
That's
found,
not
I
over.
foiled the loss, I filed
That was
the
late in the
lawsuit.
game. That was the
It,
last
that
thing.
ended.
2016.
Because we basically said that Possibly Lefferts Gardens did not have the authority to do a district-wide rezoning. They did not, we did not choose them as our representatives, and that they did not have the authority to do so. And if they did, they would have to be following the open meetings law. And so I demanded to see all of their internal books, I demanded to see all of their finances, and I demanded to be apprised of all of their meetings and making sure that they were abiding by the open meetings law. That lawsuit stopped the plan.
Do they ever
So
file?
they never did a plan?
So did they ever file for a plan? Because I've never seen
No,
any.
because it never went forward. They were doing community engagement.
Alright, so I'm
Yes,
just
there was
gonna
that
get
Paul
out of here.
Graziano. They were doing it. They were doing the community
Are we
outreach.
insurance,
We're, okay,
Yes.
can
So,
we-
but I
can
have
we
a
formally-
question, so are we not moving forward because it hasn't been done before? Is that what we're doing?
So, I'm
Is that
just
an
telling
option
you-
is my first question, then
No,
that's my
So
second
I'm,
question.
It's not-
I'm-
not
so
an
hold-
option.
So hold on, so I'm just telling you guys what has happened in the past and what the different newer mechanisms are, right? So in the past, I do not know of any 197Cs that have passed, but there have been communities that put forward 197Cs. Bushwick is one, Chinatown was another, there was a Chinatown community plan. There may have been others,
Bushwick was not a
And did that make
197C
it through?
plan.
They did
That
not.
was a district-wide rezoning. That was not a 197C plan. I was all involved with Bushwick at the time.
So back to his original question, is that something you're attempting to do, or we're attempting to do?
It's right now, I'm just telling you guys
What has happened?
what has happened and what exists,
Okay,
right? 197A is the other typical thing that gets put forward as a district-wide planning mechanism. 197A isn't just about housing, obviously, it also involves transportation, economic development, and several other pieces. But 197A kind of has a bad reputation because of what happened to Wilkinsburg, where they took a 197A plan that said we want to improve manufacturing on the waterfront and this, that,
and
and
they
the
helped
other.
Williamsburg gentrify
And-
themselves.
And they turned that around and they said, nope, we're going to just redevelop all of the waterfront for residential. So 197A for that reason has a bad reputation. And, you know, it's political too, because what I heard was basically they, it got to the city council and they shut out the council member from Williamsburg. They wouldn't even let him sit in.
Who was the
on
council member at that time?
I don't know. I don't know.
It was just a raw deal. They worked on that plan for 7 years.
And
All community stakeholders,
this,
the Department of
And they
City
screwed them
Planning.
over with their
Yeah.
plan.
so
Shook
this was
it,
under
threw it in the
Bloomberg.
garbage.
This was under Bloomberg. They basically just rode right over them, right?
Because that's
City
what you
planning
do.
did.
The whole city did. The
Yes,
whole
because
rest of the
it's
city
an,
did.
It's advisory.
The
You
city
give those
council,
plans, those
the
things
city
are
Stop
time.
saying
The city, the
Stop
city
saying
council.
It doesn't matter, that's what they
your
say.
community,
And
thanks
that's
for
exactly what
inviting us
happened.
in.
Right,
It was
they
the
And now we're
whole
gonna
city,
do what
it
we
was,
wanna
it
do.
was the mayor
Just advisory.
and the whole city council in addition to city planning. The city planning by themselves does not have the power to jam these things through if the council says.
So
But the
council
rest
support
of the
them.
council also
Of course
apparently
they do.
shut out the
Community
council
deference.
member from Williamsburg.
Is this
It was
something
a-
to bring
it
up
was-
in the next one as well, like,
Yes, so let's, yeah.
I
That
was
was
gonna
the time
speak an
when
hour ago,
Williamsburg-
but the voting.
Yeah. So that was the time when Williamsburg was
So,
predominantly
you guys got
Hispanic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Somebody have a
And
motion?
again, I go back to federal government versus the city of New York, city of yes.
What do they call that area now, Dumbo?
Oh, second.
I don't know what they call it.
Second, what did you say, Alicia?
I said, what do they call that area now, Dumbo? Williamsburg area?
Something that doesn't reflect the Hispanic history. Yeah, about that. But Suki, I know you're looking at me with what is she talking about?
Pull up the law.
But-
I know.
That makes
But,
it whatever.
and bigger horses have been tackled before. But this housing, this city of yes thing, no matter which community looks at it, it is predatory on people of color. Gentrification was bad enough. City of yes is authority. And they're looking at it and going, yes, this is gonna happen, but we can deal with that. Because it's not them. Because it's not them. And the people, if you look at the public schools, you look at the churches. Those people, black churches, kids in public schools, the numbers are a whole lot less than they were before gentrification. And City of Yes is gonna make it be even more. They know it's gonna happen. And when you know something's gonna happen, what is it the criminal system called it? Premeditated. There we go. Thank you. There we go.